Okay, no intro needed here. We got a lot to go over. I don't even know where to begin. I got so many theories cooking in my head right now, and we were just shown so much lore and details. That's not even counting the side quests that I have yet to play. We got one of the coolest battle and cutscenes I've ever seen in the game. Finally, a Harbinger going toe-to-toe with an Archon, trying to take it by force. I love it. And this is not the end. We are going to see them fight again. This was just a little tease that tied us over for now. So let's break down this entire quest here. And in order to do that, we need to understand two concepts. You've obviously probably heard of the Will of the Wyab, which is an entity specific to Natlan, and each tribe has their own. The Wyab being an entity, worshipped and acknowledged by all 6 tribes of Natlan, and they are believed to be an entity that dwell beneath the earth, and to be capable of seeing the past and the future. Each tribe has its own Wyab, and it calls upon it for protection, guidance, blessings, to worship basically. And each tribe chief interprets their dreams as a means to determine their Wyab's will. And tribe members are gifted by the Wyab, chosen specifically to bear ancient names, which is a great honor. And these ancient names are names associated with heroic deeds and heroes of the past and its past bearers, which gives that individual a very deep connection with the ancient name and that person, which also acts as a way to preserve each tribe's history. The Wyab decides who's deserving and who isn't. It's not completely understood by the tribe members and people in Natlan how it decides this, but that's just the way it works. So obviously you must be worthy to some capacity to be associated with that ancient hero that carried that name. And these 6 tribes and their heroes were established by the Archon 500 years ago when the Cataclysm struck, and it struck hard. It hit Natlan worse than any other region, because Natlan has the least connection with the ley lines. We learned in Inazuma that the ley lines were crucial to help keep the Cataclysm and the corruption at bay when the Raiden Shogun defended the nation, and each nation had their own circumstance. So Natlan's Pyro Archon and its 6 heroes, with their names, kept the Abyss at bay, but the Abyss is the most formidable opponent in all of Teyvat, according to the Pyro Archon, and this was just a temporary solution. And the impending doom in Natlan still hangs over everyone's head. We're gonna circle back to that, but you notice that there's a lot of connections with Mondstadt, Wind, Time, and Fate. Also, Mondstadt and Natlan are the 2 main regions that focus around the Abyss the most, which is sort of a breath of fresh air. It's nice to have the Abyss as a main villain again. And we even get cutscenes from Mondstadt. We're gonna circle back to all of this again. There's a lot to unpack here. Starting off in our journey in Natlan, we meet Kachina, who is a name bearer herself and gifted an ancient name, but she doesn't feel she deserves it, and a lot of other people don't either. They view her as a joke, and her team pretty much abandons her because she's considered weak. She's never won the Natlan pilgrimage or tournament, ever. But she still has that name, which means the Will of the Wyab chose her for a reason. So obviously we make quick friends with her, and honestly, they did a really good job at making me attached to all these characters pretty quickly, because it usually takes me a little bit to warm up and get attached to new characters when we first jump into a new region. It's a great honor to protect Natlan from the Abyss and fight back against them, and I really like the aspect of a tournament but also a real war at the end of it. The top 5 combatants from the pilgrimage get chosen to fight the Abyss in the real war with real consequences. So essentially the pilgrimage is set up to fight in teams, and then once you make it past that stage and not eliminated, you then do 1v1 battles until there's 5 main people left, and then they go to fight the real war against the Abyss. Hence why they have a team round at the beginning, because you need to learn how to fight with teammates, because that's the motto in Natlan. The nation can't be saved, and the sacred flame can't be preserved and powered by just one individual. Even the Pyro Archon states this. It's a joint effort. It's a constant battle to protect the nation from the encroachment of the Abyss, so it's everyone's duty to participate and fuel the fire within the tournament and the night wars against the Abyss. Kachina has never fought in the wars, so she feels a little disgrace from this, despite bearing an ancient name. Then we meet Molane and Kanich, who also have ancient names. Now how the tournament or pilgrimage works is you split up into teams. If you make it past the first round, you fight 1v1s, and if you make it to the top 5 or the remaining 5, you get to fight in an actual real war against the Abyss, the Night Wars. It's a great honor because it helps protect Natlan and fuel the sacred flame. The tournament and the actual war go hand in hand. Again, it's a great honor to do this. Now, if you fight against the Abyss in the real war, and you die, as long as your team is successful and wins the war, you will get resurrected. And it doesn't matter how many survive, as long as at least one does and you guys win, then you will be brought back to life. That is why the first round of the tournament to establish who's going to fight in the real war and represent Natlan, help protect the nation, it's a team event. You have to know how to work with a team, but you also have to be strong individually. Milani has fought in 3 of these wars, which means she's at least made it far enough in the tournament to earn a spot 3 different times. She's never lost and never been killed, so she's never needed to be resurrected. She's a veteran. Kinich has also fought and won in the war, and he did die at some point, so he needed to be resurrected. And there's a great ceremony after the war is won. However, if you lose the war and all 5 are killed, you do not get resurrected. So Kinich repeats that famous line we heard in the original Teyvat trailer. The victors burn bright while the losers turn to ash. You turn to ash because you remain dead. If your team is ultimately unsuccessful. And where do these dead people go? Well, their souls are kept in the Night Kingdom, which is basically like the afterlife for people in Natlan who fall in battle against the Abyss. A constant war with the Abyss that never ends. So naturally we get the tournament arc, and for the first time ever, Kachina's actually able to make it to the Night Wars, defeating Milani in the final, joining Chaska and Isen, who also made it to the Night Wars. While they go to fight this war, Milani takes us to her home village where the Abyss attacks and we help defend it, getting to show off our Abyssal Corruption cleansing ability, something we haven't used since Mondstadt, another parallel there. And they even show a flashback of Mondstadt and how we purified Dvalin's teardrops. The same corruption that's taking place within her aunt is what got Dvalin when he fought Durin, a creation of Rhindaughter, one of the 5 sinners on Dragonspine. Durin got corrupted like this as well, and that's why he was lashing out. It's cool that we get to see some of this again in the duality between these 2 nations. So we help cleanse her aunt, but her internal organs have been affected for a while now and she's already been destined to die fairly soon. But it turns out they were successful in the war. Only Kachina fell in battle. So she literally dies this quick into the Archon quest. But it's all good, we can totally resurrect her. Because they ultimately won the war, right? Of course it's not going to be that simple. I knew something was going to happen, and of course, the Pyro Archon cannot resurrect Kachina, and they don't understand why. Obviously everyone's upset about this, but I gotta say, the Pyro Archon, by far, is the most reasonable, level-headed, down-to-earth Archon we've ever seen. She's completely reasonable, explains everything, feels empathy, and she's totally not a power tripper whatsoever. She knows full well that she needs everyone's cooperation, and everyone has to work together. So naturally she can't be resurrected because the Night Kingdom has been invaded by the Abyss, which in turn corrupts and affects the Wyabs. Now this is obviously detrimental and dangerous to all of Natlan for obvious reasons and threatens the very nation. If the pilgrimage and the tournament don't proceed, the flame will weaken and the Abyss will strengthen. But if you keep sending people to the war, they'll die and won't be able to be resurrected. So a bit of a catch-22 here, what do? But there's an option to actually physically enter the Night Kingdom, an ancient doorway underneath Natlan, where the ancient sovereigns had a civilization there. So that's what they choose to do, to go save their friend. Now, it's no surprise that the Fatui Harbingers want the Gnosis. Everybody in Teyvat probably knows this at this point, and we know the captain's an honorable dude. And I absolutely love that he wastes no time. He straight up tries to just outright take it by force. No trickery, no games, no politics or frickin' MacGyvering behind the scenes. Just outright tries to muscle the god of war for it. And honestly, I was quite satisfied with this. This is the Pyro Archon with a Gnosis, and he went toe to toe with her. He basically states that he knows all about the ley lines, the Abyss, completely familiar with what everything's going on. Obviously the Fatui know everything. They know what they're doing. They know the circumstance and the position that Teyvat is in. They are trying to change the rules and seize authority from the gods. They need that Pyronosis. And you can all stop questioning that he's the first Harbinger now, because now it's all but confirmed. He's the guy. He's number 1 in the Harbingers. So they have an epic fight. But she says that it's personal. This isn't just about the Tsaritsa. Well, clearly the captain says he wants to change the rules of Natlan in the way it's set up because it's clearly not working. They're not any better off or safe. So so he's going to probably try to take the position of Pyro Archon. He even says to usher in a new age, we need to destroy the old. And he straight up just tries to fight the Pyro Archon, the god of war, in a 1v1. Ultimately, I would say he probably lost. For those of you that question if he's on par with the Archons, you can rest easy now. This does not look like somebody that's having an easy go at it. And this is a Pyro Archon with her Gnosis. Yeah, the Archon is chosen as a mortal to begin with and ascends into Archonhood, but you're still the Pyro Archon. And just as they're about to go again, some smog and haze show up, and the captain retreats. I want to make a video dissecting this fight and just the captain in more detail, but honestly, for a first bout between these two, this was perfect. They both got some good hits on each other, and to challenge a Archon of War in a straight up fight that still has their Gnosis is nothing to scoff at. There's nothing to be ashamed of there. I don't know, I felt he lived up to the hype, a man that can challenge gods. And this is one of the strongest gods in Teyvat, one of the 7. The god of war. And like I said, we haven't seen the last of it. Do you think the captain doesn't have a transformation like every other harbinger we've ever seen? Of course he does. He's got an ace up his sleeve, and I have no doubt the Pyro Archon does as well. We're going to get to see this. But the Pyro Archon is now weakened, because if you're not having the pilgrimage anymore, because people can't be resurrected, she has to expel and use her own power to keep the flame strong, to repel the abyss and keep Natlan safe in the time being. The captain knows now that she's weakened, but he is also injured from the fight. A Fatui member even says we should strike now, because she'd be easy pickings for the Gnosis, but the captain, being the stand-up honorable guy that he is, says no. He's not going to earn the Gnosis that way, and I've been saying this for almost a year now. He wants to earn it fair and square without game's trickery or being dishonorable. He could probably go take it by force now, that she's had to use her power to keep the flame going, but he doesn't want to do that. He's not about to kick someone while they're down, and he has time now to recover in the meantime. He's also seen talking with someone who I believe to be the person that we saw in the trailer, Oron, I believe his name is. Right before the captain and the Pyro Archon were about to duke it out again, he showed up with the fog, and the captain got away. Now, going back to Kachina now, they go into the Night Kingdom, rescue Kachina. While they're in the Night Kingdom trying to rescue Kachina, you can tell it's corrupted, the soul's being corrupted, and one of the Wyatt totems has been compromised or corrupted. They have to cleanse it, they have to defeat the Abyss Herald there, and then they have to escape before the crack or rift closes, which it does, but then the Pyro Archon saves them. She had a contingency, all the artifacts she showed us in her room. She was able to use them to muster up enough energy to get them out. That was her ace up her sleeve. And you notice that we see a Seelie in the Night Kingdom. We're going to come back to that. That's not to be overlooked. Milani was awakened as the hero. One of the 6 heroes that needs to be awakened. And that's been the Pyro Archon's plan all along. You see, she's actually the Pyro Archon from 500 years ago. She had a family, had a little sister, and we see the Pyro Archon somewhat go down memory lane. We see Tenok, who is a legendary hero. I honestly thought he might be the captain, resurrected, because he's such a legendary hero from Natlan's past that helped fight the Abyss. I'm a little disappointed that he's just a generic NPC. We got to see his Obsidian Club though, and then we see this reference again to the sun, wind. There's so much talk of fate and time in Natlan. The present, the past, and the future. This is referenced so many times in this Archon quest. Again, linking it to Mondstadt. Now, I'm not exactly sure how she did this, if she went into a somewhat slumber or if she time traveled literally, but the Pyro Archon from 500 years ago that established this new tournament, the pilgrimage, and the system to keep Natlan and its sacred flame strengthened from the Abyss and its constant war and conflict. She came up with the system, and she ultimately knew in 500 years Natlan would genuinely be destroyed. So she was able to transfer herself into the future. So for those of you that are a little confused about this, she's a human from 500 years ago. She's not immortal or cursed like Farina, and her ultimate plan, she needs to be around 500 years later to be realized. So she prolongs her own life by being in somewhat of like a perma-sleep or time traveling. And she was awakened just a few years ago by the Wyatt. And in between her being in the Cataclysm Archon and now reawakening, there have been other Pyro Archons, other humans or mortals that have earned that title and come and gone. She also briefly mentions that the first ever Pyro Archon was a male. So I'm pretty sure that's Shablanki. I hope I'm not butchering that name, but I probably am. Pretty well referenced with the Lava Walker artifact set as well. But man, we get so many references to Mondstadt. Is Istaroth aka Venti playing a big part in this? The Abyss seems to really target Mondstadt and Natlan. We have Vanessa, who is a big influential character from Natlan, that's the first Grandmaster of Mondstadt. Bennett, who's from Natlan, that is now in Mondstadt. Mondstadt being referenced in this Archon quest. I honestly wonder if Mondstadt and its Archon are playing some sort of role here. Also, we're going to be getting Mondstadt expansion in the future pretty soon. And Mondstadt's going to be a region we're revisiting before Shaznaya at some point. But either way, she reveals that there's 6 heroes that are required. They even ask her why didn't she just time warp the other 6 heroes that were during her era, 500 years ago, that defended against the Cataclysm. They're already awakened, name-bearing heroes that were proven. But she states that that's unfair. They have their own lives and families and things to do. To drag them 500 years into the future, to fight another war, and to drag them to ultimately Natlan's destruction just didn't seem fair to her. That's not their burden to bear. And the reason she's not telling everyone in Natlan is so that they don't lose faith, because if people lose faith and purpose, people will stop fighting in the war, competing, and the flame will go out. The passion that burns bright within everyone will fade. That's why people can't know the truth. And if people genuinely knew the truth, and knew that 6 heroes need to be awakened, it would probably affect your ability to actually awaken to begin with. So now we have 2 heroes remaining that we need. We know that Kinich, Insan, and Shionen are all ancient name bearers that have awakened memories of their ancient hero. Milani now making 4, but there's still 2 more that we need. Will Chaska be one of them? Maybe the captain? Because the captain sort of hints that the Pyro Archon was more than willing to let him go. Maybe she has a role for him to play in the future. Perhaps he will be a hero and pivotal to save Natlan. We know that the Fatui Harbingers have been known to help the nation that they're from, and I don't think the captain, being the guy that he is, would let Natlan fall to the abyss. The Pyro Archon also stating that you can add another ancient name, which means that the Traveler is going to be the 7th, and a new ancient name. She jokingly states that if you can't create new ones, there would have been none created to begin with. So we will be the first ever outsider that's not from Natlan to actually bear a sacred name or ancient name. And apparently Shionen will be the one to actually do this for us, who we'll actually see in 4.1. Since she'll be playable, this makes perfect sense that she'll be a big part in the next act of the Archon quest. And that is where we're basically left. They did also answer some questions like why people from Natlan don't leave. They are bound by the Wyab and their homeland of Natlan, so that power weakens the further they get away from their homeland, so people just don't leave. This also sort of acts like the ley lines for them because they don't actually have strong ley line connections like the rest of the nations in Teyvat. Now I'm assuming that the reason the Pyro Traveler can't resonate with Pyro and the statue right now is because the nations weaken, the Pyro Archon is also weakened, and the Abyssal Corruption of the Night Kingdom and other aspects of Natlan probably sever this. Sort of like how the resurrection doesn't work right now, the resignation with Pyro probably doesn't either. And the Traveler is going to be a huge player in this Archon quest. I mean, we always are, but having that purification is going to be more handy than ever. As for why the Abyss targets Natlan more than the rest of the nations, I think it's because the ley lines are weaker here, so the resistance is a little weaker, so it's easier to invade Natlan. The Abyss is more or less the ultimate threat to Teyvat right now. It's not compatible with Teyvat, and that's why it corrupts the land and its inhabitants, whether they be powerful dragons or just mortals that are trying to fight back. But us being a descender with our powers makes us the perfect person to fight back against this. Another really interesting detail is the Wyab itself. It's an entity, supreme entity that all tribes and people from Natlan worship, look for guidance, blessings, protection, and there are these new creatures in Teyvat, elite enemies that you can fight in the overworld. They are manifestations of the Wyab, and they look exactly like a biblically accurate looking angel. So where do you think I'm going with this? Naturally, I think they're connected to Columbina, and I think she's connected to the Wyab. Maybe she is the will of the Wyab, or its greatest or most powerful manifestation. Since she's the 3rd Harbinger, she has angelic features. She's heavily linked with death and the Sealies, having angel references like these creatures, and is said to be as strong as gods according to Nahida. She's also been leaked to be from Natlan and an ancient race or species from Natlan that mortals call upon for divine blessings. Again, I got a whole video in the works here on this already, and I'm going to leave it at that. But that is all we ultimately have right now. Natlan's destruction is pending, and unless we're able to defeat the Abyss and awaken all of the ancient heroes of the tribes, Natlan is doomed. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm going to start playing the side quests in Natlan, exploring further, and ultimately trying to dig some information on other connections with Mondstadt, different harbingers, the Wyab, and the different tribes. I want to make a video on its own talking about the different tribes in the lore, because I feel there's a lot to unpack there, its history. But let me know what you thought of the Archon quest. I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it. I thought it was engaging. I'm excited to see what happens next. But thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. And as always, we will see you all in the next one. Later.